Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the marketplace. Coming up this afternoon, ensuring food sufficiency amid the coronavirus pandemic. What role can industry play? We have a look ahead to the Joy Business Industrialization Forum set to take place tomorrow. Also coming up, fall armyworms posing a threat to food security. How can government effectively tackle this threat? We will explore. Also, the search for our local pharmacies up to the task. We have a report just ahead. My name is Darryl Carl. Thanks for being on the marketplace. We've got details right after this break. Welcome back to the marketplace. Fall armyworms may pose a threat to food security as the country tries to tackle the effects of the coronavirus pandemic on food. Now, the Ministry of Food and Agriculture has been urging farmers across the country to adopt preventive spraying to ward off potential invasion by the fall armyworms. Earlier this month, the ministry sent a release to caution farmers about a resurgence of the destructive maize pests. Director of Plant Protection and Regulatory Services, Dr. Felicia Ansamprofi, wants farmers to take education on the worms more seriously. She spoke on a visit to persons in the food value chain in the Ashanti region. Aboagye-Wiafe has more in the following report.
Preventive spraying is adopted to protect maize farms against fall armyworms and other pests. Dr. Ansamprofi warns farmers whose farms share boundaries with infested plantations risk losing their crops if they fail to heed advice.
You have a period of about 3 months for the maize to mature before harvesting. So during that period, when you do the first spray, you don't have to rest. You continue monitoring. After 2 weeks, you go back and see if it's still there. If the infestation is still there, you have to spray again. You have a maximum of about 3 sprayings for a season. So if you're lucky and the infestation is not high, you could spray once and that'll be okay for you.
In 2017, Ghana experienced her first armyworm invasion, mainly of maize farms. The Agric Ministry has since mounted surveillance for early detection of resurgence. Dr. Ansamprofi says some farmers have refused to make use of extension services, even when they have evidence of worm on their farms. She says the ministry will continue to educate them on the issue.
What you are saying is that the government have put in place measures by buying the chemicals that they can use to control the fall armyworm. And this they can get access to when they see the AEs. So small-scale farmers are supposed to contact the agric officers or the agric offices to ensure that they get their pesticides to spray. But the commercial farmers may have to just follow on our advice and get the right pesticides to buy.
Meanwhile, Sector Minister Dr. Oswefie Akutu says government is working to deal with the pests to avert threats to food security.
So we are dealing with over 3 million farmers. We have only about 4,000 extension officers. You can't cover everybody. So you come into situations where farmers do not know what to do. Although the instructions are on the radio, we're doing all we can. But generally, of course, fall armyworm is under control.
For JoyNews, Aboagye-Wiafe reporting.
Well, joining me for more on this is my colleague Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, who is on the Agric desk. Great to have you, Joseph, this afternoon. What are you hearing about the resurgence of the armyworms? Can you hear me, Joseph?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Right, so tell me more about what you're hearing about the resurgence of the armyworms.
So from what we're gathering, you know, the rainy season is just about beginning. Here in Accra, we saw some very heavy downpour over the weekend. in other places, the week that just passed had seen quite some rains, and even 2 weeks before. Now, what we know for certain is that these pests have become endemic to a certain extent, and so they are not going anywhere. Every year at the start of the farming season, we can expect them to resurge. And so it's about putting in place the necessary measures in order to avoid widespread destruction. But with the onset of the rains in a lot of the farming areas in the Bono-Ahafo region, the Ashanti region, parts of the western region, the Volta region, the southern belt generally, we are seeing the rains fall, and farmers are beginning to prepare for the planting season and doing their planting. So just as that is happening, then we are seeing the pests emerge. And chances are that even in the northern part of the country, where we are expecting the rains to fall because they have a single season sometime in July thereabout, when the rain begins falling there and farmers begin planting, then we can expect the pests to resurge in some of those areas. So pretty very much more than 8 regions of the country where we've seen rains already, and the first rains fall, the indication is that the pests are emerging in those specific areas.
What has been done in the past to tackle this threat, and where are we lacking?
Mainly, it's about education for farmers to really properly detect these pests. And even beyond that, beyond detection, then what happens next? There are questions about the sort of chemicals that can really deal with it. Fall armyworm is an invasive, pest that affects more than 80 different crops. They chew on virtually every part of the crop, and their consumption of food is very high. That's what makes it extraordinary and more devastating. And because they begin consuming crops from beneath the leaves and all, then they are more difficult to control. So you need more potent chemicals in order to deal with them. A lot of the regular chemicals that are used to deal with ordinary pests do not work. So what has worked in the past has been a situation where governments have deliberately brought in chemicals, stocked them strategically in the district offices, so that as and when a resurgence is seen, then the real experts, the extension agents, can then be brought in to help deal with it. That's why we need to do more if we can keep the pest under control.
I was going to ask if spraying was enough, as we had it being said in the story played before we spoke. Is that enough to deal with the threat?
So a long-term approach could be deliberately cultivating and coming up with seed varieties that are resistant. A lot of research has been ongoing into that in places like Kenya, where the BT crops, which have embedded in them the Bacillus thuringiensis, which is a fungi that has inherent protective cover against these pests. Some of these research are ongoing in other parts of the country. That is about time Ghana also took seriously and deliberately made the conscious effort to develop varieties that are resistant, because once they emerge and you're fighting them with pesticides, then you are impacting negatively on the environment as well, and that also has to be looked at.
Help our audience appreciate what impact it could have on food security, even as we deal with the coronavirus pandemic. We don't know when it will end. How would this impact on food security? What economic implications could there be?
The destruction that we saw was an infection of more than 117,000 hectares of farm fields. And we recall farmers complaining about how they were losing money and how a lot of them had run into debt the following year. And at a point in time, governments had claimed that we were so self-sufficient in maize production that we were not importing anymore. But beyond those infestations, we saw a situation where the Poultry Farmers Association confirmed that they had to import some maize into the country. So the impact could be devastating, particularly on cereals like maize, hence the need to take it more seriously. And the affectors are indicated more than 80 different crop varieties, meaning that virtually all the foods that we consume every day, even if we choose to find alternatives to cereals, could actually be negatively impacted.
All right, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, head of our Greek desk, thank you very much indeed for your perspective. Now, local pharmaceutical companies are racing against time to meet demand for essential drugs, including researching into a vaccine and supportive care, as Ghana records more than 2,000 cases of coronavirus. Now, already 15 major indigenous pharmaceutical firms are only able to meet 30% of Ghana's demand for essential drugs, with the remaining 70% imported mostly from India. In the following report, my colleague Charles Aite interrogates the preparedness as these companies benefiting from these companies benefiting from the $30 million support from the Ghana Exim Bank.
Disruptions COVID-19 has had on the global economy, countries like India have halted the export of essential drug ingredients. This has left local pharmaceutical companies no option but to ramp up production. Ernest Bediako Sampon is the Chief Executive Officer of Ernest Chemist Limited.
The cost of labor here is a bit cheaper than the cost of labor in Europe. So there's going to be a lot of savings. So the products will far be cheaper than some of the products that we source from outside the country.
Increasing local production of essential drugs from 30 to 70% will mean an increase in manpower and capital. Director of Tobinco Pharmaceuticals, Kwesi Poku Apia, says much investment is being pumped in to expand production lines.
What is going to happen is that if we are getting more, let me say, more orders from the government, we are going to increase our production, and that will affect the overall overhead cost. So the cost will come down, and to be a very good thing for us.
The Chief Executive of Pharmanova and Atlantic Life Sciences, Danajayi Trapathi, said the company would focus on the production of vaccines and other essential drugs.
Innovative products of infusions, eye drops, and vaccines and sera.
So far, senior officials and board members of the Ghana Exim Bank have told some of these local pharmaceutical companies benefiting from a $60 million funding. Resurgence Sam is Chief Executive of Ghana Exim Bank.
These are the two key industries that are supporting our fight for the COVID-19, of which Ghana Exim Bank has already made 200 million Ghana cedis into the pharmaceutical industry. Here we are with a factory that's almost about 80% completed, Atlantic Life Science.
With a strong local pharmaceutical industry, Ghana's fight against the novel coronavirus can be optimistic. But then, industry players say some stimulus packages and tax waivers could write off some cost incurred from production. I'm Charles Aite for Joy Business.
And we want to have a talk about a big program coming up tomorrow on how industrialization can be a catalyst for food sufficiency, especially at this time we are dealing with a pandemic. Joy Business is putting together a program for you. We are bringing together industry players for that forum. That is tomorrow, Tuesday, the 5th of May. And Odilia Ntiama is spearheading this discussion. She joins me in the studio with more on, first of all, why we need to have this conversation, Odilia.
It's been critical, and just the story that just went by indicates that we as a country need to fill up the excesses that we currently have seen show up in the health sector, in any other sector. It was very evident when India said they could not actually allow the importation of certain key drugs which they would use during the COVID times. So just imagine that if this had become protracted, exactly what was going to happen to us as a country. And so it's critical that we have a conversation and take a real deep look at how to really push this conversation forward and get us to really become self-sufficient. And that's why we're putting this together.
Okay, and so which people are we bringing together to have this discussion? So
we are bringing the CEO for West Africa for Blue Skies. You know, Blue Skies has been in this country for over 20 years. They've currently employ over 4,000 workers. So they are really key to the industrialization in this country. They've actually transcended to other countries. And so the CEO for Blue Skies West Africa, Ruth J, is going to be there to give us the perspectives of ease of doing business in other regions. We also have the CEO for GIPC, who's going to look at, now that we are not going to have a lot of FDIs coming, how do we strategize to get investments into the industrial sector locally. We're also having the Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry also coming. We have an innovator that will be sending a live equipment to Inhachu also coming in. We have Kasapreko, who are our hosts for the event. So the Deputy MD for for Kasapreko will also be there. So basically, these are the people that we'll be expecting for the show tomorrow.
And I know that you've been engaging industry players even before the event. What are some of the sentiments you pick from them on this topic, on this subject?
I think they are pretty much excited because this is the time that they will get to actually speak about the key things that the AGI, for example, has been mentioning in their business barometer in relation to, I mean, if we really want to industrialize, we've got to look at electricity, we've got to look at our the volatility that comes with the currency, we've got to look at raw materials. And so for everyone that have engaged, they can't wait but to be there.
Okay, so who can participate in this event? How is it going to
if you have
take place in these times where we can't gather en masse?
So you can go online on our Joy FM, JoyNews online handles that we have on social media. You can participate there. We'll be sharing WhatsApp lines also that you can send your questions ahead of time. If you have any videos that you think your business or you want to say anything, we'll share a WhatsApp line that you can also share ahead of us, so that we can actually put some of these things also on
Okay, so it's going to be on radio, it's going to be on TV, it's going to be online. You can follow on
yes, from 9 to 12.
YouTube, on our YouTube channel.
Yes.
And so 9 to 12, I was going to ask you the time, and of course the venue is at the
Kasapreko,
but we all can't be there.
Yes.
So we have to follow online. Thanks very much indeed, Odelia. Tomorrow we will tune in and follow the discussion on industrialization. Very important during this time of the coronavirus pandemic. Now, wholesalers and retailers of steel products, including iron rods, have described as unacceptable the increase in prices by 7 steel manufacturing companies operating in Ghana. The companies B5 Plus, United Steel, Tema Steel, and Ryder Steel Company Limited, among others, have announced an upward adjustment in prices of mild steel. There is more in the following Business Desk report.
Information picked up by Joy Business shows that the increment by the 7 steel companies, which are alleged to have formed a cartel, has been happening on a monthly basis since November 2019. A message sent to all wholesalers intercepted by Joy Business reads, quote, "Please find attached the following as mild steel rods price schedule with effect from the 1st of March 2020. Mild steel with 10, 11, 5.12, 5.12, 14 and 80 millimeters now sells at 3,200 cedis instead of the 3,000 cedis. Also 20 millimeters now sells at 3,280 cedis instead of 2,900 cedis. Similar messages were sent in November, December, January and February, culminating in an almost 100% increment in steel products. This latest increment comes on the back of the President's announcement of 50% reduction in electricity cost for all businesses and individuals above the poverty line, among measures to cushion the country against the impacts of COVID-19. Further checks suggest that the companies which enjoy exclusive manufacturing of iron rods and other steel products because of government's ban on the importation of steel created artificial shortage of the products to force the wholesalers and retailers to buy at their expected prices. This has pushed wholesalers in the steel business to call on the President, the Minister for Trade, to look into the matter, describing the development as cheating, especially in these troubling times when coronavirus is already eating their profits.
Now, the Institute for Energy Security, IES, has called on government to consider funding the repairs and expansion of the bulk oil distribution, storage and transportation company BOSS with proceeds from the price stabilization levy. The company, according to its managing director, is operating at about 25% of its capacity. Executive Director of the IES, Pakwesi Anamasichi, who spoke to Joy Business, agreed that BOSS needs new investments to help expand its infrastructure to meet current demand.
Never been against the BOSS margin increments. The last time they sought to introduce the increments was wrong timing. Fuel prices were going up and they were introducing more taxes and levies. It was a wrong timing. We understand very well and we all know that time value of money is something that is in business that you need to consider. And so this 3 pesos that was given to them, or they have today, was some years ago. And so the value has eroded over time. So they need to introduce additional one to help them have enough cash to operate. And so we support the increments of additional 3 pesos. This to
they're looking for somewhere around 9 pesos.
Well,
and haven't seen the infrastructure and all the presentation that has been done, you know.
Well, that's a whole new discussion. If you want to move from 3 pesos to 9 pesos, it won't be bad if you can justify it, because the 3 pesos falls in place, that the value of the existing one has fallen by more than 40%, so not 100%. So let's introduce something in addition. Of course, we have grown as a country, and so we might need to expand the infrastructure to be able to meet the strategic, fuel purposes. And so if we have to move it to 9%, 9 pesos or more, we can look at it. All of us have seen the waste going around, and we need to save the situation. Our concern is that whether we give you 3 pesos or additional 9 pesos, will you put it to efficient use? Because we've seen time and time again where money has been misapplied and money has been applied inefficiently in the bus system. In their trading, they admit that between 2017 to 2019, they made losses. If they would channel this money straight into infrastructure, into tanks building and to pipeline building and maintenance, we will support even the 9 pesos increases if they won't divert it.
Okay, so now some have said that, I mean, if it's not a bus margin, there are other already levies that government has taken, and we should consider that. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Well, we are in full support, especially with respect to the price stabilization recovery levy. It's never been able to stabilize price of fuel for us as a country. Price of fuel was around 3.6 pesos per liter in 2017, shot almost all the way to 6 Ghana cedis per liter. Where was the price stabilization recovery levy? How was it utilized? That it didn't bring us any benefits. So we think and we believe that if this money is even diverted to BOST, because they are the only institution in Ghana that's mandated to ensure fuel security and manage the price risk as well. And so it's a good call for government to consider diverting this money to BOST instead of going to MPA, of which they can account for. And so we're in full support of that.
And that's the marketplace this afternoon. Just remind you of the Joy Business Industrialization Roundtable, which takes place tomorrow, the 5th of May. It will be live on radio, TV, and online. Don't miss it. My name is Darryl Kwao. More news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business.